My weirdest case? Oh gosh, there's a lot of weird cases. You don't want to talk about my weirdest. I work in homicide, so I'll just leave that out of there. But yeah, I mean, the hardest cases to work are children. Yeah, when you see children are killed, it's really hard. Number one, you were there for Jason's talk this morning on the problem of evil, right? What do you do? Every single set of victims' families, they want to know, why did this happen to my 10-year-old? Why did this happen? And at that moment, you got to think about it. Well, am I going to tell you the 10 factual pieces of evidence why this murder occurred? That's not what they're looking for. What they're looking for is, how could an all-powerful, all-loving God allow this to happen to my 10-year-old? That's the harder question to answer, right? Now, I'll just say one thing. So you can I think that we have a good answer for that. Do you know what it is yet? I think Jason started to touch on it. We need to master that. Go.
How does knowing both sides of the argument benefit?
Well, I know. Well, first of all, I depending on who you're dealing with, you can anticipate the objection. So sometimes what we will do in a trial is that we know what we have to release to the defense team our discovery. It's everything we're going to show the jury. There's no surprises in a jury trial. They also release to us, they're supposed to anyway, everything that they're going to show the jury in discovery. So we're not surprised. No one like in TV comes in the night before and there's some big surprise. We'll object and it won't get in. It wasn't released early enough. So I know where they're headed. So often when we're presenting the evidence, we will present it in a way that cuts the knees out from underneath what we know their objection is going to be, what we know their response is going to be. If you know what the objections are going to be, you can sometimes mention the objection in your initial claim. If I'm going to say, hey, look, the universe came into existence from nothing. That is the standard cosmological model. That there was no space, time, or matter until the universe, space, time, and matter appeared. So whatever causes the universe cannot be material, spatial, or temporal, because there is no space, time, or matter before the universe begins. Now, I know there are lots of other theories about this, but they've all been disproven. That's why now I'm saying that part because I know he's going to counter with one of the alternatives. He might say, well, it's quantum mechanics. We know that doesn't work because quantum mechanics has to have an environment, a quantum void, that's space. There is no space when we start. Space is something, it's not nothing. Space is something. There's nothing when we start. So I might mention this before I even go because I know that's what's going to be. I know what the objection is going to be. So let me just knock those down first before we go to that. So that's why I think it's important to know both sides. But I don't think you're always going to have to do that for every person you're talking. Most people have not thought seriously about these things. But they will after you talk to them. So what's going to happen is you're going to make the claim. The next day they're going to come back, yeah, but what about this? Because they Googled it overnight. Well, now you have to be ready to offer the response. I'm never surprised by what the responses are. Every claim I've ever made for Christianity, I already know every nuanced response that could be offered by anyone. Because why? Because I'm the same reason with the Maury Cooper. I can tell you what the responses are going to be. So I'm just geeked out about it enough to care about it. Somebody over here, go. Everyone always asks what the final piece of evidence was for me, but here's the problem with cumulative case, guys. I'm not that kind of guy. So to me, it's the overall weight. I assemble everything. I don't stop digging for the case until everything's assembled. And I said to Susie, look at this case. It was that diagram I showed you. So look at this case. I think it's strong. But it's never any one thing. Now, here's what I learned in working in criminal trials. You show the entire cumulative case. Every little thing, even the stuff that you think, well, this is part of the case, I don't think it's that compelling, but I'm going to include it because, it's part of the case. Then when you debrief the jury afterwards and you say, hey, what was the most compelling piece for you? You won't believe the answers. Somebody's going to pick that thing you almost left out. That's why I don't leave it out, because every person, when they view a cumulative case, thinks some different piece was compelling. That's the beauty of a cumulative case, though, too, because the defense team has to knock down everything because they don't know what juror is pinning on what piece. So for me, it was the cumulative case. Go, and back. I think I'm more like Grover. I'm always going to talk about design. I might say, if it's a complete stranger, I think Grover's way in is just so easy. Oh, I love your backpack. Look, I love the design of your backpack. I mean, then you just write, there you are. I mean, you're ready to go. And it's so easy because it starts with a compliment. I love your watch. I love that. If there's nothing, I love the design of this coat. Could I care less about the coat? Probably not. But I'm going to say, I love the, because I'm looking for a way into the design conversation. But that would mean you'd have to have some idea of why biology is designed. I can make a case for the design of biology just from DNA. I know that case, and I'm able to communicate it without having to get technical. So just be aware. Now, sometimes you're going to start that conversation. You're like, oh, dang, that was someplace I didn't know was going to go there. That's okay to say, you know what? That's a great question. I'm going to get back to you on that. If it's somebody at school, somebody you actually know, you can go back to. Just stop right there, say, great question. I'll get back to you on that. Then you go home and research it. That makes you a better presenter also. Go ahead. Yes. Okay, so have you read Greg's tactics book yet? Okay, yeah, I know you had. Okay, so what do you do if someone's just, we usually call these steamrollers. They're just people who are just dominating the conversation. It's always the same people in class. They're always pushing the same side of it, and you feel like you can't get a word in edgewise. Well, these are people who are talking. So what you have to do is learn how to ask good questions. If they're going to talk all the time, make sure they're talking about the things you want them to talk about, not what they want them to talk about. So then you say, well, how do you explain DNA information in biology? You're out. You're not making a claim about DNA. You're asking them how they explain it. Because they're talkers. Now they're going to either skirt the issue, and if they do skirt the issue, you're going to say, well, yeah, but you didn't really answer my question. How do you explain DNA information in biology? Hold them to it. All you're doing, let them talk. What happens is most of the time people who don't really know will expose themselves to the other part of the group really fast. You don't have to make a counterclaim. Just let them talk themselves into a hole. Does that make sense? But that means you'd have to know what's true well enough to know why that's a lie and how to pose that question. You know, the three questions that Greg always talks about is, what do you mean by that? Why do you think that's true? And the third one is the hard one. Those two are easy. The third one is, have you ever considered this alternative? You have to know enough about why what they just said was wrong. Back row, go. Right, but that's not a sheepdog. That's a teacher. Well, you need to be a sheepdog because you're going to be sitting at the feet of a teacher. Because a teacher is going to say something, and a lot of sheep are going to go, oh, okay, I didn't know that. A lot of sheepdog are going to go, is that true? Wait a minute, where did I see that in Scripture? Sheepdog at least know enough about the truth in Scripture to say, I don't think that's right. And they can go back to the Scripture to find out. So that's different than a teacher. Go.
Oh, so like for being a sheepdog, like in protecting the sheep, what does it really mean to like protect? Is that like mainly just like debating for the Bible?
No, I hate that word debating. I'm not a debater. I've never done a public debate. I'm not interested in debate. I'm only interested in dialogue. Because you debate people you see as an enemy. Or an opponent. None of these people are opponents to us. They are our brothers and sisters to be. So what I simply do is I'll just ask good questions, right? Also, I immediately evaluate them. If they're a 4, I block more people and mute more people on social media than probably, and I just wait and see okay, once he says that, okay, he's a 4. He knows where to find me on my website. So I'm not letting this nonsense happen on my page. But you know how to find me. You can email me privately. By the way, isn't it so interesting? I'll say sometimes, email me. That's private. They don't want a private conversation. They want the public debate. So they never end up emailing you. If they do email you and you email them back, they post it publicly. Go.
Is it possible that there's evidence that other religions are correct?
Yes.
What if Christianity is wrong and it's not proven correct?
Is it possible it's wrong? Yes. I always say yes if you say, is something possible? Anything is possible. Not everything's reasonable. So yes, it's possible, but it's not reasonable. And that's just the nature of it. I mean, look, when I first got interested in Christianity, I bought a Bible, a Pew Bible. I wasn't spending a lot of money on this stupid thing, okay? So I bought a Pew Bible, $6, okay? And then my family, who are all Mormons, my sister Mormon missionaries, thank you very much. I had them at my house for 8 weeks. But once they started coming over, I'm like, is that possible? That's true. So I bought a Book of Mormon. And Doctrines and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, bought the entire quad. Read through all of it before I read the Old Testament. And I simply applied the test to the Book of Mormon to see if it was possible it was true. The test I'm going to show you later today, it doesn't work for the Book of Mormon. It shows that it's false immediately. So I just knew. I wasn't sure Christianity was true, but I did know one thing: Mormonism wasn't true. I still wasn't decided about Christianity, though. So yes, anything is possible. So go.
So you talk about you found, like you did this whole case study to find if Christianity is a reasonable thing to believe.
Yes.
Was there an emotional response when you...
Okay, so everyone always asks me this. It sounds like the entire thing is head knowledge and not heart commitment. And you cannot separate those two things. But I will tell you that people who are more inclined, I have a hard time with heart stuff. I am very emotional about my wife and my kids. But I've learned doing this job that you have to draw a very tight circle around the people for whom you are willing to cry. So my wife's in there, and my children are in there. Nobody else is in there. Well, I had a great dog, Bailey. She was in the circle, but my cat, Simba, is not in the circle. Sorry. But here's what's good about it. If my nephew got murdered, I could work that case because he's not in my circle. Now, that's a very bad approach from a Christian perspective, but it is functional from a detective perspective. But I do have a struggle with allowing much else in my circle, right? So so for me, yes, can you have it? Like, here's the problem. Because I see the church is so heart committed to Jesus without any head knowledge, I always resist it. I'm like, really? If you had to make a choice between these two, please use your head. Paul says you are transformed by the renewal of your heart. No, by the renewal of your mind. And that's how you're going to be transformed, by the renewal of your mind. And we are out of time, folks. Go have lunch. I'll see you afterwards.